And welcome to a special edition of BDLL Europe for April 13th. How's everybody doing?
Very well.
Good.
Doing good.
Great.
All right, so for those that don't know, we do this once a month on the second Saturday of every month for the Europe guys who can't make it during the normal ridiculous hours that we record the regular BDL for them. And this is not to say that anybody can't join. You guys can join, but this is specifically for a time zone that they can agree on. All right.
Sound is good.
Sounds good? All right, dig it.
Yeah.
So, let's start with, well, this is not the regular BDL, so we don't have to start right away. What have you guys been up to? Army, what have you been up to since the last time you were on here?
Not that much, actually. It's Easter holidays at the moment, so I'm enjoying just being off work for 2 weeks, but back on Monday. So doing as much as I can with the family and not allowed to use the laptop as much as I like when I'm on holiday, according to the wife. So it's time to spend time with the kids. So.
Right. I get it. EB is going to be back. He was on. He said he'll be back in a couple minutes. Martin, what have you been up to, brother?
Well, since the last time I spoke to you, I've been working on Raspberry Pi images for Ubuntu Mate. We have a public beta 1 out for that now. And I refreshed the Ubuntu Mate images for the GPD Pocket and the GPD Pocket 2. So those are available as well for 1804 and 1904. And just earlier today, I was getting ready, as Frank knows, you know, we're getting ready for 1904 release next Thursday, and we've already started our planning for 1910 as well. So lots going on, you know, the usual thing, you know, late nights and early mornings doing stuff for your passion project.
Right. And Frank, you didn't tell us that you were helping out Ubuntu Mate.
Well, I just trying to be quiet because I'm really learning more than I'm doing, because I've gotten a chance to look behind the curtain, so to speak, and there is a lot more that goes on than I expected. And it also has changed my view of everybody that does distributions, because my respect level for everyone else out there has risen amazingly, because it is a lot of work that I did not realize went into. And I'm just like at the bottom trying to learn what's going on and get my feet wet. And there's an incredible amount of stuff going on. And my respect level for everybody has gone incredibly much higher.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's why when we do these distro, you know, on the regular BDL, we'll do distro challenges and whatnot. And I try not to do the whole next thing, because there is so much hard work that goes into it. If you don't know about it, you wouldn't know about it. And it's a shame, because like I said, the distro that we try each week may not be for me, but it is for somebody. And like I said, a ton of hard work goes into it, no matter what it is. And we should at least appreciate it for what it is. Yep, I agree.
And I think Frank's doing himself a disservice, because he's already added a huge amount of value, because the testing that he's done has uncovered a number of bugs that we were just colorblind to and hadn't seen. And we've had a couple of weeks to mop some of those up. So I'm really pleased with the quality that we're able to bring to this release, because of the work that Frank's done to actually highlight some things that we'd forgotten about or didn't know about. So Frank, don't worry, you're doing great stuff already, and there's plenty of time to learn more.
Fresh pair of eyeballs, right?
Yep.
Sorry, Eddie.
Nope, you're exactly right. It's a fresh pair of eyes. Wendy, you haven't been here forever. What's going on?
Yeah, it's been quite a while since I've been here last. Mostly just working. But as a few of you know, I homeschool my kids, and every Thursday we have homeschool co-op. So we get together, and this semester I've been teaching an intro to Linux class for
Right.
And I've started the kids on distro hopping recently. My favorite.
Why would you do that to them?
I'm doing all the installs, so I'm doing it on 4 laptops. But so Plasma is my favorite DE, and I decided, well, you know, I should probably let them experience some of the other ones. so they have a safe place where they can kind of play and destroy things. Well, at the end of class this week, one of the students made a joke about the code that you would run to wipe a Windows system off your machine. So I told him the Linux version of that. You got it all typed into the terminal and then had a panic attack, like, I'm really not allowed to do this. And I said, no, you're fine. There's nothing important on that machine. We're in an educational learning environment. Hit go. So he completely removed the entire operating system on that machine, and we got to watch the terminal run.
Awesome.
Quite fun.
Nice. Very nice.
I think that's a really important hurdle to clear, right? I can remember when, I was growing up, you couldn't do that kind of thing to a computer because everything about that computer was installed in ROMs and what have you. So it was really only the persistence of what you were doing whilst it was turned on that was ever destroyable. And then as more sophisticated computers became available, I was very nervous about experimenting with stuff because of that. Well, what happens if I get it wrong? And I sort of had to have a conversation with myself, which was like, it's fine. If you break it, you just figure out how to unbreak it, and that's a good thing. And that cycle of actually making mistakes and learning from them and figuring out how to unbreak the terrible mess you've made is probably why I ended up doing the kind of work that I do today. One of the things I did very early on is my dad got a work computer, which was DOS 3.1 or something or other. I'd no experience of PCs back in that day. And this was his work from home computer. And the very first thing I did was format a floppy disk, but get my A's and C's around the wrong way and formatted the hard disk. So I completely wiped this whole machine that he'd just been given from work. So then I very rapidly had to read the MS-DOS manuals and figure out how you install DOS again from floppy disks, on the hard disk, and go through all of those hoops. And so that was a fairly brutal learning curve, but one that I had to go through.
But it's awesome to be able to provide that environment for them. The previous week, they did a fresh install. So, they know how to do that. But it was fun just to give him the opportunity to say, yeah, this is a safe place. Go ahead and trash the system.
All right, Big Paw, what have you been up to since we chatted last?
Fixing my, finally doing all the stuff I needed to do on my Arch. So now it works kind of perfectly.
Of course it does.
Yeah. And I have moved all my build server stuff to another platform, or more say another program. So now it works better, or at least it seems to be working better. So it's all wrapped up now. Thankfully.
All right. Eric, you okay with helping me out?
Absolutely.
All right, dig it. What have you been up to, man?
Definitely not comparing file managers. That's for sure.
Well, speaking of, hold on, before we get to file managers, Frank, how is your thing going?
Well, that's the other beautiful thing that I decided to spend a lot of time on. So if you don't know, what I proposed is we had chats a few times through the various biddles about what a new user is and what a new user, the best distro for that user. And then there was an article, I think it was a couple of biddles ago, that we very much disagreed with their findings. So trying to be a good community member, I decided that I would propose that if you wanted to write up something, just a few paragraphs telling me what a new user is to you and what distro you would recommend and why, I would coalesce them and put them together, and we'd put them up on the Biddle website. And I've gotten a bunch of responses. I've gotten a few people that said they were going to do it and haven't. And it's been really, I've been trying not to read what people send me so that I'm kind of still like, I've written up in the Rocco scene what my kind of little write-up was. But I've gotten pretty good response. I think we're going to have a good article. It's just been, like I've said before, Telegram is not a great collaborative tool, and it is a little bit hard to find out who's sending me stuff and this and that. But it's going to be really nice, and I urge anyone, because there's such a great, and I hate to use the word diversity because it's so overused, but BDLL has this awesome diversity of people from various parts of the world, various experiences, what they do. Some people don't even use Linux in like a business sense. They just use it because it's fun. So there's just this great wealth of knowledge. And I just urge anyone that wants to, I'm going to do, Wednesday is going to be like the last call day. And just send me something, ping me in Telegram, send me, it doesn't have to be just a couple paragraphs, and I'm going to put it up, and hopefully we'll have a nice article to send people to. And
awesome. Now, you can send it if you're not wanting to send it through Telegram. You can send it through the website or send it by email to me, and I will forward it to Frank. So
you can email me. Or it's not too hard to figure out. This Frank's MCB at some large conglomeration that does web searches. If you just send an email there, you can probably get to me.
Dig it. That'll work too. And Peter, we do not have to ask what you've been up to because everybody knows what you've been up to, but let us know anyway.
Been playing with laptops.
Right? And desktops?
Well, taking data off the laptops to put onto the desktop.
So tell us, what did you get recently?
I got a System 76 Filio delivered to me on Tuesday, and it arrived at my workplace Tuesday morning, and Tuesday was a killer until I had to get home. And people kept asking me for photos and information, so I went ahead and made a little video, which now has almost 300 views, and I am so stunned. So thank you if you've watched it and liked it.
Yep. Definitely been a lot of drooling going on lately. Just saying.
It works great, and people like my little monitor.
Yeah, I would say. It's probably a 15-inch regular monitor, right? No?
Yeah, times 2+.
Yeah. All right.
Steve in the chat is saying you should have left Peppermint. I made him happy yesterday because I booted up Peppermint on a USB and took a photo of my screen and sent it to him, and he was very happy. It wasn't installed, but still.
All right. So on the regular BDLL, we had a conversation last week about, we normally talk about distros and hopping, and we check out a new distro every week. But we decided to do something different. And whose idea was that? Last week. I forget. But anyway,
I don't know.
We decided to take a look at file managers, and not maybe take a look at them, but take a look at our favorite file managers and give us the top 5 reasons why you would pick that file manager. And, well, I mean, I could just insert the 30-minute video that I did on Dolphin and play that, and that would tell you why Dolphin is the best file manager on the planet. Just saying. But I want to hear everybody's opinions, because, Martin, I don't know what you would choose as a file manager as your favorite.
Really? I think you do.
Okay, maybe.
So yeah, I use Kaja or Kaha, which is the file manager that's part of the Mate desktop suite. And I think it's great. And the reason it's great is because you remember when Nautilus was great? Well, Kaha is that, but with more greatness baked in these days. So as GNOME continue to remove features and trim down their feature set, you know, Kaja has all of that background. I'm going to mix between Kaja and Kaha because different people, different languages.
Right.
It has all of that functionality that used to exist. So you've got things like dual pane file managers, which are really useful when you're taking advantage of another feature, which is connecting to remote servers. So you connect a remote server over either SSH or maybe Samba or whatever it might be. and then you want to move some data between your local drive to the remote drive, you hit F3, you get the dual pane, you select the thing and right click and just say send to the other pane. And now you're transparently sending data. So when I was preparing the Ubuntu Mate images for the GPD Pocket, those are all built locally. I've now got 8 gigabytes of images I need to select. I just right select, send to other pane, and whoosh, that's now heading off to the servers. So that's how those images, get sent up to the servers. So there's some old features there that, continue to live on in Kaja. But then because it has the heritage of being based on Nautilus, all of those people that invested time and energy in creating extensions for Nautilus, it's all the same APIs, just with a different name, to do the same thing in Kaja. So consequently, Nextcloud, OwnCloud, InSync, Dropbox, SpiderOak, and insert name of all of these other cloud syncing utilities, SyncThing, they all have direct integration with the Kaja file manager. So if you're using any one of those, cloud syncing tools, then you've got baked in support for all of those. And then over the last couple of years, we've added a number of extensions of our own to Kaja. So you've now got a really sophisticated bulk renaming facility built right into the file manager. You can do hash checking, hash creation, encryption and signing all within the file manager. It's integrated with the backup facility. So Deja Dupe is the backup manager that we prefer in Ubuntu Mate, and you can just right click on a file and say restore from backup, or restore from last backup, or check my backup, or back this file up now. All of that's built in. You've got things like folder color, which come from people like Marcos Costales, who've written this extension where you can colorize your folders. So if you want to draw your eye to particular folders in your workflow and highlight them, then that's all there. You can open directories directly into a terminal. Right click, open a terminal here. You can open files and folders as the administrator, but not using sudo and any of that insecure nonsense, but all through PolicyKit. You can right click any image you've got and set it as your desktop wallpaper. You've got decompress and compress functionality built in on any folder or archive type you can come across. I mentioned the connections to servers, and then if you are looking after a more complex system, you've got full access to access control list support, extended user attributes, and everything generates thumbnails. So whether it's a photo or a video or a bit of music or a PDF document or a LibreOffice document, thumbnails of all of these things get generated. So it's a really rich file manager that is constantly presenting you with quality information to help ease and draw your eye to things. Particularly when you're organizing photographs and documents, you can just zoom in a couple more markers and you can see readable thumbnails of all of these different file types.
Well, you mentioned before about the integration. Now, like I have SpiderOak. Do I have to do anything specific? Like, do I have to add a plugin to get that working?
Yeah,
or
I think all of the the different cloud tools, they all have something called something like. So in SpiderOak's case, I think it's something like SpiderOak-Kaja or Kaja-SpiderOak, and the same is true for SyncThing and Dropbox. They all have file manager service or service file manager that you have to install, that then adds that integration. Now we do that hard work for you, because if you install any of those through the Ubuntu Mate software boutique, we know you're on Ubuntu Mate, so we automatically install the file manager integration along with whatever it is you happen to be installing.
Nice. All right, that's one vote for Kaja. AB, do you have a favorite file manager?
Good evening, everybody. Yes, I certainly do. And my favourite, actually, is a very old one. It's a very comfortable one. It's one that everybody on the planet is familiar with. Of course, it's called File Explorer. And the reason I like File Explorer, I'm sorry, we're talking about Linux. Do apologise. Yes, my favourite File Explorer on Linux is, of course, the mighty Nemo, which is the default File Explorer on Peppermint. Love it to bits. But I do also like Thunar very, very much as well. I know Martin's big into Kaja. Kaja is very nice, very good, very functional. But just personally, through constant use, I suppose Nemo is just my favourite.
So Nemo and Kaja have got the same heritage in that they're both forked from Nautilus originally. So they share a lot of similarities, and a lot of that cloud integration stuff that I mentioned that's available for Kaja. More often than not, you'll find that those plugins exist for Nemo as well.
I definitely think Nemo is, in my opinion, my second favorite file.
Yeah, it's just predictable, does what it says on the tin, and it's also really, really fast. I've never had a response issue. I seem to get responsive. I mean, you're only talking microseconds in a lot of instances. Do you know what I mean? But it's just that little delay, whereas Nemo's just bang, 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 bang. It's terrific little file manager.
And I'll be honest with you, when thinking about file managers, a lot of times I will go with not the one that looks the best, but that plays a part in it, because you're in this file manager pretty often, and it has to be something that you enjoy using and be simple for you. So, for example, Thunar is okay, but for the life of me, I can't think of why your documents and everything would be listed after your devices. I mean, like, that to me just drives me insane. And that's one of the reasons why I can't say that it's a bad file manager, but it's just something that I just can't. There's so many other good ones. I'm not going to use Thunar for that reason. Big Pod, do you have a favorite file manager?
Yes, I do. My favorite file manager is Nautilus. Well, for me, the reasoning is that it's been the first file manager I used when I came to Linux, being on Ubuntu GNOME. Okay, at the time it was already mainline Ubuntu, and I never really looked into any other file manager because it works for what I need to work, and it is what I'm now used to, and that's it.
That's what you got. You like it?
Yeah, it works well for me, and that's it.
Okay, that's good enough. Army, favorite file manager?
I tried a couple this week. I tried Dolphin, which I've tried on KDE loads of times.
You're pretty low, brother.
Oh, sorry, hang on. It helps if that's in front of my mouth.
Hey, there you go. That's better.
I can't afford expensive mics like some people. So I've I've tried Dolphin.
Get anywhere in sight, neither, bro.
I've tried Dolphin. Really like it, but whenever I've tried it on Ubuntu, I've always found that the theming was off. Although I tried it on MX this week and it looked really good, and I was willing to give it a good go for a week, but I don't know why. But it was the only file manager I tried this week where I couldn't connect to the network. It wouldn't even show it in the file manager at all. It just wouldn't come up. It wouldn't even register that I was clicking on it. So I wondered if it was an MX problem. So I tried Nemo and it worked flawlessly. I've just installed Kaha to give that a go because I forgot about it since I moved away from Mate, and that works as well. So I don't know what the problem is with Dolphin, but which is a shame because, like you said last week, it's one of the ones where if you don't want to see drives, you can hide them and you can customize it to however you want, which is really good because when I loaded Nemo, about 15 drives popped up because I've got 15 snaps installed. And then I had to go through and remove them individually from lists and things to try and stop all those showing up. So that was a bit annoying. One thing that I've noticed, I tried Kaha and I can't figure out a way of getting it to work, is bulk renaming. And it's the same in Nemo. You can't get it to work unless their recommended thing is that you install Thunar, and then in Nemo, you put a command in so that when you bulk rename, it opens the bulk renamer in Thunar, which means you've got to have two file browsers installed in order to bulk rename something. Which I don't bulk rename that often, but it is annoying, and I think Dolphin does it straight off. I mean, it doesn't really bother me which file manager I use as long as it's not Nautilus, because it is so stripped down now, and I just can't stand it anymore.
So in order to get bulk renaming in Kaja, there's a package to install Kaja-rename. Now that's installed by default in Ubuntu Mate, but it's not a package that's installed by default if you just install Kaja, because we don't suck in everything that Kaja can do when you just install the base file manager, because there are some people that like to use it on other distros and other desktop environments, and they don't necessarily want everything coming in. So if you search in your package manager for Kaja-, you'll see a bunch of additional stuff that you can install that, you know, adds a lot of those features and facilities that I talked about earlier.
Have you ever considered pointing that out to people I'm not sure there'd be an easy way to do it, but I would probably know to check for that, just because I know with a lot of like text editors are the same way. Maybe the plugins are a separate package or something, but I think maybe if someone fired up the file manager and didn't see a feature, they might not know. Mm-hmm. So
I haven't considered doing that for Ubuntu Mate, because within the distro, everything is enabled, you know. So if you plug a mobile device in, it will work. If you plug in an what's the new exFAT partition device, that will work as well. I've made sure that all of those things are there. When you're using a distro like Arch or Manjaro or Antergos, then really the onus is on you as the curator of your desktop experience to know to go off and do the research to actually, you know, add all of the requisite packages in order to fully unlock, or maybe not. Maybe your gig is you want the most minimal environment. You don't want everything imaginable, you know. So, you know, when you're on those distros, it's really down to you to sort of, you know, pick and choose and piece together precisely what you want.
Yeah, and I think you're right there. I think the expectation wouldn't be to throw everything in, especially on that type of setup. So I wasn't aware that everything was already there on Ubuntu Mate. So,
and more so on Debian now as well. So I was invited by Debian to do some work on Debian Buster with the Mate implementation to make the default Mate experience on Debian more like Ubuntu Mate. So I did that work about a year ago. So when you install Mate on Debian 10, which is some weeks away now from final release, you will get a lot of that similar experience out of the box, albeit it will look differently because it's a different font and different theme, but the core functionality is very similar now.
Yeah, I've just checked on the package manager on MX, which I'm testing at the moment, and it's not. There's a lot of plugins there. The rename one's not there, but it is in the backports one. Everything you've just said just pops up in the backports. So I'll have a play with that later on today. Can I ask, because I know we were saying before, some people said they like Nemo, some people said they like, like you like Kaja. What's I know Nemo's, you know, developed by the Mint team, and I know Kaja's developed by the Mate team. But what if they're both forked from Nautilus after it started making changes that people weren't really happy with? What now is the big difference? Because they've both got lots of plugins. They both, you know, look very similar, and I don't really know why you would choose. Obviously, you choose Kaja if you're running Mate, but if you're say running XFC, which I've got at the moment, and I'm not happy with Thunar, what benefit does Kaja give me over Nemo when they're both forks from the same parent?
So, as I've said, Kaja and Nemo both have lineage to Nautilus, although they were forked from Nautilus at different times. So Kaja was forked from Nautilus when Nautilus was the GNOME 2 file manager. Nemo was forked from Nautilus once the GNOME 3 effort had started. So it was forked once the migration to GTK3 had happened, and some of the slimming down, but not a lot, had happened. It was in the very early days of GNOME 3. And Nemo is the file manager that was created for the Cinnamon desktop. So it is very much a Linux Mint, you know, development activity. So Nemo and Kaja are very closely related because Nemo preserves a lot of the features that Nautilus had way back when. And because other than namespacing, the APIs are still the same with Nautilus, a lot of those extensions and plugins work. I haven't used Nemo in such a long time. I couldn't tell you precisely what the differences are now. I think the differences between Nemo and Kaja and Nautilus, as it is today, are huge. Nautilus has been so focused on minimalization of features and capabilities that it is starkly different to Nemo and Kaja. I think if you put Nemo and Kaja side by side, you'd struggle to find the differences between them now. I think they're both fairly feature rich. I think Kaja more so because once the fork happened, it was our thing, and we were able to introduce a number of new features that don't just live through extensions and plugins, but are actually baked into the file system now, baked into the file manager now. But yeah, the Nemo and Kaja just have a lot more features than Nautilus.
All right. Wendy, favorite file manager? Or do you have one?
I really don't think I have one. I do most of my file management with pictures with the secondary program with Rapid Photo Downloader. And so as long as I can easily get to all my files and then quickly back them up between drives, just about any file manager will work for me.
Now, that's an interesting observation, because I think maybe if you were using GNOME and Nautilus, or Files, whatever we want to call it, and you're using a third-party application to do a specific thing like organize images or music or something like that, and you needed, a lot of times those things will have features built in like renaming, things that maybe you'd be looking to. I might expect the file manager to do that, but someone who has another application like that, maybe that's why they don't see Nautilus as being less featureful, because they have another way to
well, and I have a very specific way in which I name my files, and having a secondary program allows me to add job codes, which a batch renaming would be, I think less efficient in what I need. So as long as I can access my files and back them up real quick, they'll work.
Rapid Photo Downloader is a really great app as well. If you've never used it and you are sucking photos off a digital camera, it's excellent, because you can tell it, as you suck all of these pictures off, I want you to name them in this way. So you take the sequential naming, and it will assign attributes that you define to the download. It's terrific.
And you can define folder structure, so they go into specific folder structure that you want. And if you have raw images and JPEGs, they can synchronize them. It's an amazing application.
All right, Eric, you want to wait till the regular bit, or do you want to unveil your favorite file manager right now?
You know what? I'm going to be on both, so it doesn't matter. I'll tell you what, I'll save my exhaustive one for later. And it's not exhaustive. It's really not. It's just I looked at the features that I value in a file manager, and then I thought, okay, to be fair, because last week we were being a little, snarky about, well, let's figure out how Dolphin is better than the rest of them. And I wanted to be objective and say, well, why do I like Dolphin so much? What is it about Dolphin that I use all the time? And why is it when I go to a different distro or different desktop environment, I struggle at times with and don't like the file managers? And so I picked some reasons, but I will say that in researching, I had not used Mate and Kaja very much. But when I went and was researching, I was very surprised and happily surprised to see how many features it has out of the box. And so, I had really thought that basically my only two options were Dolphin and Nemo, because Nemo gives a lot of the same types of features that I look for. But I think actually Kaja probably has a few more features than Nemo does that I would take advantage of.
Yeah, but I think that goes back to what you said earlier. I don't think that when you open up Kaja, I don't think you really realize how much it has with it. Like you had mentioned, is there something to let you know that you can get these integrated things in there? And No, there's really nothing there to say that. I mean, unless you're running Ubuntu Mate and it just works out of the box, and you just tried Kaja on some other distro, you're not going to find the full advantage of it. So I think that goes into it.
Yeah, there were two basic things that Dolphin still has over those, which would be the layout customization. And I do like having the dedicated preview pane that you can have on, and wherever you want it. By default, it's all the way on the right-hand side, but it shows you, let's say you're in detail view and you want to see a preview of that photo or something, you can see it. It even does, it'll play videos now. And I think that's a really nice feature. For me personally, I use that quite a lot. So. But otherwise, I mean, I was very surprised and happy to see. It's funny because my initial reaction to Mate in general is I just felt like it was too much of a blast from the past. Like I'd look at it and it was just like I felt like I've traveled back in time 10 or 15 years. And
what
I know
you're saying is it's a design classic, I think is the word.
It is.
I think that's what he's saying.
I had said that in Telegram this week, and I think someone took it as me being critical, and I really wasn't. I was saying that it's amazing how much functionality was in that desktop that long ago that I mean, I think I took that for granted for a long time, that all those things were there, and then they weren't, right?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. There are certainly features that exist now in Mate that didn't exist in GNOME 2. So since the fork, we have added some features thoughtfully. So, we haven't just, rammed a load of stuff in randomly. I ran a straw survey on Twitter recently. Tell me the number one feature that you'd like to see in Ubuntu Mate. And it was remarkable how many times people would explain a feature to me and I was able to reply, that feature already exists. And, people just didn't realize that these features are there. They just assume that they're not, and maybe they don't go and look very hard to find them. But, it was remarkable how many times, the feature that people were looking for was a feature that, existed.
Well, I think so. What I'm starting to realize is that I need to take more time and really give it a chance to go back to look at some of those things. I will say that I've moved on a little bit from the default sort of layout of GNOME 2. And so I would probably I like the tweaks option where you can, choose some different default layouts. So, but I really, in looking, every time I go back to it, I find something new and useful. So that speaks volumes, and I really want to give it another shot. So.
All right, Popey, what's going on?
Sorry, you surprised me there. I wasn't planning.
It's all good.
Oh, it's me. Hello.
Wait, are you on a different mic?
Is it weird?
You sound like you're on a cell phone headset or something.
Yeah. Zoom probably didn't pick up the right mic.
If it's Bluetooth, it's probably got it in like headset mode or something. I don't know.
Come back to me.
Okay. Frank, do you want to unveil your favorite file manager here now?
Well, there's obviously the only answer to that is the best open source file manager is WinFile.exe because it's open source and it is awesome. But in all seriousness, the two DE, I think that it's a really hard question because the file manager and the DE integration is just basically, if you're going to choose a desktop, you're going to get that file manager. It is not exactly easy to take another file manager and bring it in and use it. Like I obviously like Mate and I like XFCE based systems. Thunar it's a lot better. It has a lot of issues. If you want to use something, let's say I want to use Nemo on an XFCE based system, I can put it on there and I can set up the integration and I have to do a few settings, but I'm not going to have the greatest time. I'm going to get weird artifacts left around. Drag and drop doesn't always work perfectly. So in some senses, you're kind of going to be locked into that desktop you want. Now to go back and talk about Kaja, I messed it up too. It and Nemo are my two favorite file managers. Nemo, now you've got Budgie as a choice. You've got Peppermint, and you've got Linux Mint Cinnamon. That's basically what you've got if you want to use those. Kaja, you're basically going to go to a Mate theme. Obviously, Ubuntu Mate or Solus Mate, or there's tons of different stuff. So to go back to like Kaja, one of the things that helps me in my workflow is I really like to have color-coded folders so that I can look and say, oh, these red folders are something I need to work on immediately, just like the red, yellow, green. And obviously there's a lot of green in Mate. But I can color code everything so I know immediately when I'm going to work, okay, this is critical, and I have everything in my red folders. And the encryption that's built in so I can easily encrypt files. I think Kaha really and Nemo, pretty much the same, have the best options to me. If you're going to go with a KDE base, you're going to get Dolphin, and usually it's going to find out I love KDE, so I love Dolphin. And I think it's really hard to separate the file manager from the desktop experience.
Agreed. And that also goes back to what Martin was saying earlier, where, all the side things are already installed in Ubuntu Mate. So you don't get the full effect of a file manager until you try it with the DE that it was designed to go with. So, Peter?
Okay. With my new clicky keyboard, I've got to keep myself muted these days. I love that keyboard. Anyway, I was going to wait till tonight.
Wait. Which keyboard is it?
It's the DAS keyboard.
Martin was just telling us before the show. He has one himself.
Who's that?
Martin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here you go.
And do you like it, Peter? That's the thing.
I love it. It's clicky. I like it.
All right. Okay. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So, I was going to wait till tonight, but I've been teasing Sergey in chat, and he's going to go ballistic if I don't reveal it but right now. I've been teasing him all week, actually. My normal workflow is using Solus, Budgie. It has Nautilus. Nautilus is not the best, but it works. I mean, I don't do too much in that environment. Best file manager overall is the terminal. I do a lot of file management in the terminal. And so I think a lot of us might agree with that. We don't mention it as much as we should. But Linux is fantastic for that, for Bash. Do a lot of file movements in the terminal. I remembered as we started this challenge last week, my mind went back to the 90s. We're talking about classic design. And I was an Amiga user. And I used a program called DirWorks, which is very close to Directory Opus. And I loved DirWorks. And I thought, okay, is there a version that works on Linux? And there's not, but there is one called, it's called Worker. Why are you laughing, Rocky?
I was laughing at the chat. I'm sorry, Peter. I was laughing at the chat.
Okay. And so I was expecting some laugh when I revealed that I use Worker. I do love the two-pane method. I love having all the information right in front of me. You can color code it. And it's not distro specific. It runs on X Windows. So I'm going to have to learn how to reinstall fonts on X Windows, though, to change the font size and such. But my challenge to myself is to not use Nautilus at all and use Worker and Terminal only. So that's my self-challenge. And by the way, Sergey last week said he used XFE, which is actually a good file manager as well.
Okay. Well, Serge should come on here and give us the top 5 reasons why he uses that file manager. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Dan.
And by the way, Worker opens up excellently on my 34-inch monitor.
Does it? Does it scale well?
Oh, you get every pixel.
Okay.
And then some.
Dan, do you have a favorite file manager?
I'm going to save mine for later.
Okay, dig it. That's cool with me. Popey.
I don't know if this is better or not.
It's better. Yes. Perfect.
Oh, dear. So I'm a little bit similar in that it's weird because I'm sitting at a KDE machine, KDE Neon, and the one
obviously Dolphin is the best, right?
Dolphin is certainly the one that opens when I press the button. Yes. And behind me is a GNOME Ubuntu system, so Nautilus default install. And then over in the corner, you can't see an Ubuntu Mate system. But I had a real long think about this, and I really don't use file managers. I hear people saying about color coding this and organizing that. I'm a supremely messy kind of person, and if you could see my desk, you would agree with this. There is evidence to support this, but I just don't use file managers. I'll open the terminal, and I don't even use like Midnight Commander or anything like that in the terminal. If I want to move something, I'll move it in the terminal. And I'm trying to think of use cases where I would use a graphical file manager, and I'm having real trouble thinking of one where I actually actively go opening a file manager. I can't think of it.
Providing a broad overview, I think, is one of the things that a graphical file manager, for me, if I'm looking at a large directory with many folders and files, I find that sometimes that's difficult even with using, like less or some other way to split up an ls command in a terminal. So I would say that's maybe for me a use case where it helps me visualize the structure of a file system better than maybe I could do otherwise. I know you can do tree.
I can't appreciate that because if I run ls in a terminal, there's an order of magnitude more I could fit in that window than I could in any file manager. I just can't see how I would be more efficient with a file manager. But that's not to say I am efficient with a terminal. I'm just struggling to figure out what I should do with a file manager.
Well, I also think it goes back to workflow too. So if you're a visual person, then you're going to probably enjoy using a file manager more than you would a terminal. If you are somebody who enjoys using the terminal, then obviously the terminal is going to be easier for you. So that has a play in it.
I think I need to think more about every time I use a terminal. Every time I use or do some kind of file management operation, like have a little tally and figure out where I do it, because I just do it unthinkingly. I don't think to myself, I know I'm going to open Kaja and I'm going to enable the whatever feature, and then I'm going to press this button to do this thing. I just do it. And I don't know. Maybe I'm missing out. Maybe there's like 5 features of Kaja that you didn't know, blog post that Martin crank out, and I'll learn new stuff. But yeah,
I covered a lot of ground when I got to explain why Kaja is the best.
You missed it.
Yeah, that's why I didn't come on until later.
Well, you heard it all before.
Yeah, every day.
All right, I got a question for you guys, and anybody can chime in. I'm going to have 2 computers sitting beside each other. So what is going to be the easiest way for me to either network them or get files from one computer to the other? Go.
Not Samba.
Okay.
What type of files and why?
I'm going to have, like I said, I'm going to have 2 different computers. One's going to have my 6 terabyte backup drive in it, and I may need to get those files from this computer to that computer. So they may be large files too.
Just a one-off operation, or is this something you're going to do on a regular basis?
It'll probably be a regular basis because I'm probably also going to back up this computer to that one.
So we're going to have an S, basically.
I don't know. I mean, no, it's going to be 2 desktops, so a NAS would be like a separate thing, wouldn't it?
Still a desktop. It's basically, NAS is still a computer. It just does storage operations primarily.
Yeah, but they're both going to be used. One's going to be a distro hopping machine, and one's going to be a regular production machine. So, what's the best way I should get files from one to the other?
I do that.
Internet cable.
I do that at the moment with 2 Raspberry Pis that I'm using as little mini servers for things. And I tried everything, and in the end, I just set up an NFS share so that one of them thinks it's a locally mounted folder, and it just plugs away, backing stuff up to it all the time, and it doesn't know any different really. And I find that works. The only thing I have to watch is that when I turn them on, I make sure that they're on in the right way. Well, I found a script that'll do it now, but sometimes if I turn them both on at the same time, if one of them finished booting up before the other one, it wouldn't mount the share. But I've found a workaround to that now, so I find NFS is probably one of the best ways.
If you're gonna use Windows, if you're gonna use that one also on Windows, then NFS isn't really a good way. You probably should use Samba because it works better. But otherwise, NFS should be okay. Just make sure you use the cable.
Any other suggestions?
Okay, Rocco.
I use SyncThing to get files from one machine to another.
SyncThing. I've heard of it. I've never tried it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
On the same note, nice thing. The other week I discovered Ducto, and I actually used it yesterday and today to transfer files from my laptop to my new system. And it's simple and easy. You just run Ducto on both machines, and you send files from one to the other. DUKTO.
Okay. Poby, what were you saying about SyncThing?
So the thing about SyncThing, you could think of it a bit like Dropbox, but more flexible, and goes directly from one machine to another on your network. So you don't have to worry about it uploading to the cloud and then coming back down again. So you just install SyncThing on both machines, and then you get a web UI on both of them, and you say to this one, I want to share with that one, and they will auto discover each other over the network. You can say, I want to share a folder with that one. You tell it which folder you want to share, and that folder is then shared between the two machines, and anything you put in that folder will appear on both machines, and it will just, it's just like a shared folder that appears
right
in every machine that participates.
Yeah.
And you just put stuff in there and it's done.
Is that all web-based then, though? Like, I mean, you can, like, it's connected, but it's only connected when you have the SyncThing window open.
No. So SyncThing is, you can either run SyncThing on the command line. Just type SyncThing, press enter. Now it's running. If you close it, if you kill it, it's now no longer running. You could do things like have a system D unit that makes it auto start when the system starts up if you want that. There's also a graphical indicator you could have in the corner of your screen that you could press and see the status of SyncThing on that machine and on the other machine. But by default, it has a web admin tool, and you point at localhost :8384 or something like that. It's really weird when you remember port numbers of software, but yeah, I think it is 8384. Anyway, you point your browser at it, and you can do all the admin in there, or you can use graphical tools. But it's not as straightforward as Dropbox, but it doesn't. You're a clever guy, Rocco. You figure it out.
According to Serge, I am a noob.
You could. Is the second desktop just never really going to change?
I don't know. I don't have it yet. So the plan is to have that as a main machine, the other desktop, and have this machine that I'm on right now as a distro hopping machine.
Or you could just install Nextcloud as a snap, and then you'd have just like Dropbox, you'd have a folder on your hopping machine. You could just drag stuff into there. I mean, I haven't used Nextcloud for quite a while, but that's how it used to work. And with the snaps, it's pretty quick to install.
It is, but it's a bit more overhead than SyncThing. SyncThing's just it's a single binary. You could, there is a snap of SyncThing, but actually the confinement makes it a bit harder than you would probably like it. So you could probably get the SyncThing binary from upstream SyncThing GitHub repo or their website, syncthing.net, I think it is. Just run the binary. Job done. point your browser out. In fact, when you launch it for the first time, a browser will open on your machine and point to the admin tool. It's pretty cool.
Is that any better or not, Rocco?
That's better, EB. That's better.
Yeah, I just broke my headset. Didn't realise while I was on cam that, you know.
Great.
Is that
Rocco, I can't believe how everybody here is so complex. They're awesome. Whereas me, I'm typical human. I'm like water. Why the hell don't you just wallop them all on a massive USB external drive and just unplug it from one and stick it in t'other? Job done.
Well, automation.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I got Sync Thing to look into. I have Nextcloud, and I have Serge just posted a link for DigitalOcean as well. So any other options?
Yeah, if you use Google, then there's InSync, which is a better Google Drive client than Google Drive on Windows and Mac OS. So that's excellent. That's a paid-for thing, though. So
I actually own a copy of InSync. I do.
Yeah.
I just haven't used it in forever.
It's good because once you buy, I've got it for work, and once you buy the license, you buy it for that Google account. It's not a yearly license, so you can install it on as many machines as you want. And then mine's a little bit annoying because I switched jobs, and the Google account that I've got it on has the name of my old the old place I used to work on, and you can't migrate the account. So I have to keep the old name and everything. They said you can migrate it if you buy it and want to change it within a year. But after a year, you have to rebuy the software. But I think it's $20.
Okay, definitely something to check out. All right.
Also kind of network file system like SAMP or NFS. Write it down as well.
Army,
use as a folder on your it's if on a local network, it's quite easy to set up. It works really well, better than most this syncing type software where you have to use software in background.
All right, so Army, you were watching a video the other day.
Well, it was today actually. Yeah.
Was it today you were watching it?
It was quite graphical.
It definitely was not G-rated. It definitely was not.
The children were asleep. The sound was turned right down. It was rather fruity language that was being used.
I don't know who would do that. Do you?
No, I know. Nope.
EB?
Not in this country.
You have any
Despicable,
ideas?
Despicable.
It was despicable. It really was, dude.
Mind you, I think he was a stand-up guy. He did put a warning on the video, I believe.
Well, sometimes when you click on links, you don't always see the warnings. And sometimes your speakers are on and not your headphones. And sometimes your volume's a lot louder than you thought it was. Just saying. Throwing it out there.
Very, very true. Very, very true. I just think you should stay away from these content producers. They're just, I mean, it's
these
terrible.
YouTubers.
I think I watched the same video, but I didn't understand most of it because the content creator was laughing too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible when people laugh at their own jokes, Wendy. I agree. It's despicable.
So this video, EB, was a video of how Windows 10 can do everything that Linux can't. Am I right?
No.
What was it?
No.
Tell us about it.
It was. Do you know what? It was just me going off on one as usual. I find Windows at the minute very, very interesting, and I just wonder actually if free and open source software is actually announced now the death of Windows on the desktop. And I'll tell you for why. I don't know if any of you have tried it. I'm on Windows 10 at the minute, and I've been trying out the Microsoft Edge Dev web browser, which has got the Chrome backend. Very, very interesting. Question number one, is that going to be available for all Linux platforms?
As far as I heard from what they say, it will be available in Linux, but not just right away.
So
they have it in the pipeline, but for now they're going to try to get it in the Windows first working well. What they will do with the Chromium, they actually plan on changing a lot in Chromium itself, de-Googlifying it and stuff like that. And further they're going to try to make it work on Windows, and then it will be ported to Linux as well. This is what I read.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job. I'd like to coin Run with the Dolphins phrase, Frankenstein, because you load up Microsoft Edge dev version, it looks beautiful, and it looks just like Chrome, but with a bit of Microsoft theming on. And then it says, would you like to sync up? So you go, oh, yes, please, I'd love to sync up and have all my shortcuts. So you pop your Google address and password in there, and it goes, what are you doing? I'm Microsoft, I want an MSN login. And you're like,
yeah.
Really? Really?
They are basically removing almost everything Google.
Yeah. So it's like really weird, but very, very interesting how they've almost kind of gone, do you know what? If you can't beat them, join them.
So besides obviously needing to continue to develop instead of needing to continue to develop the underpinnings of Edge, what are the real advantages that Microsoft is touting for a Chromium-based Edge? Is there something that is like deeper integration with Windows, or there?
No, I just think it's their first step in a long road to move into free and open source software as their complete back end and getting rid of the NT kernel. And I also think it's probably a pretty neat way of getting rid of probably 4,000 to 5,000 employees instantly at Redmond.
Yeah,
I think it's more likely just a reduction in code they have to own. Like, if you maintain a browser, that is a ton of code,
especially the engine itself,
a lot of machines, and that's a giant attack surface for security people. People who like to poke at applications. A web browser is a great target because it's very difficult to know what users are going to do with it. They point it at random websites, they load plugins, they do all kinds of strange things with browsers. And so if you offload that attack surface to something else, then it's a smaller security team on your side for one thing.
So I get that, but I mean, so maybe the better way to ask this, Eris in chat said, why use Edge when Chrome uses the same engine? So I guess that's my point, is like, so what is Edge giving you, even on Windows? What is Edge giving you that's better?
I'm not sure it does use the same engine. I think
it uses the same engine, but it's changed, especially Google parts of it are removed out, and basically it's changed some stuff. But otherwise,
so it's going to be Bing search and
no. It's fundamental components of the browser, not the fluffy which search engine you use, but fundamental core libraries.
Okay, so they are then making actual changes. They're
actually different.
Yeah. Okay.
But this question is just for everything, right? It's why use Firefox versus every other browser, because every other browser now is based on Blink, Opera, Vivaldi, Chrome, Chromium, Brave, Microsoft Edge. They're all using the same fundamental technology. The only one that's doing something different right now is Firefox. And even when you look at a number of the smaller open source browsers like Epiphany from GNOME and Midori, they're all using WebKit, which is the forerunner of Blink anyway. So pretty much everything else is using the same rendering backend.
Yeah, but more importantly, Martin, it doesn't really matter which data source you go to. If you look at browser by brand or by browser itself sort of market shares, it's always the same. It's Firefox is like 10-11%. Then you've got all the Internet Explorers, probably 20 to 30%, way out 65% plus Chrome or Chrome derivatives.
Currently, but that's not always been the case.
No, it's not. But that's the current trend, Alan. So if Microsoft have looked at that and thought, do we really want to go the same way as Firefox? Because there's no doubt about it. Firefox is dying. And you can paint it any color you want. Firefox is done. So you're either going to use something like Microsoft's own browser, which everybody on the planet absolutely hates. There's no argument about that. Or do you use the most popular backend on the planet, which is Chrome? Everybody uses Chrome.
So I've got mixed feelings about everyone using the same backend, and for the purposes of simplicity, let's just call that Blink for the time being, although some are still WebKit. I've never been a fan of monoculture, which is one of the reasons why I like Linux, because there is always another choice. And even if you don't use the other choice, even if you're following the popular mainstream choice, I like the fact that, there's always been plenty of choice. But what you'll find is the likes of, Brave and Vivaldi and Opera, they may be using the same fundamental rendering engine, but they're finding other ways to differentiate their browser from Google Chrome and each other by doing things slightly different. So that's what we see. And it's good from a web standards point of view, because if all of these browsers are using the same fundamental rendering engine, then as a web developer, you don't have to have half a dozen browsers installed, which used to be the case years ago, and check that your website renders correctly in all the different browsers. So it's good from that perspective. But then it's on the onus of the browser manufacturers to actually make their browser more compelling than everybody else. And that's good too. But I don't like the fact that effectively we've handed over custodianship of the web to Google.
One thing I like to point out is that Microsoft probably moved to Chromium-based engine because while websites are written for one or two browsers, normally you may find three browsers like Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome. Not many people actually wrote it to be actually working on Edge the best way, and that's probably why they choose to use different engine, just for the fact that they would actually have the users would have the best experience, so they would actually use Edge instead of using something else. And that's why they can mine data from them.
I would counter that, EB, of that Firefox is dying with this. You can look at the numbers and you can say, yeah, it doesn't have the numbers that that Chrome has, okay? But that 10%, whatever it has right now, is a steady 10%. And I think it will always be that steady 10%, just like, and I almost liken it to the numbers with Linux. Linux only has a certain market share with the desktop users, but it's a strong market share that isn't going away. The people that run Linux love Linux and want to continue using it. And in the same way, the people that run Firefox are always going to run Firefox and going to continue using it. So you have your masses in the Chrome world, but you have your dedicated team or community in that 10%.
Okay, let me spell it out for you. So if you look at a graph of any data source over the past 10 years of the popularity of web browsers, right? You look at Mozilla Firefox in its heyday, it's where Chrome is now. And then over the last 10 years, it's slowly gone to the bottom of the pile. So what's the undercurrent here? Why the comment is Microsoft finally given up and gone open source? The comment that I'm leading to is this: have Google cracked it? Is not only Microsoft Windows on the desktop done, but also is Linux on the desktop done as we all know it and use it today? And I'll qualify that comment: have Google cracked it? With Android, with Chrome OS, with Google Chrome? Is the whole industry just gone, do you know what? They're even bigger than Microsoft now, Google. You ain't going to beat them. Let's join them.
Well, I don't think that's the case, because, like I said, I think that low market share that Linux and Firefox has is always going to be there. It's a constant.
But is it enough, that low market share, in the future for Firefox to continue to exist? Remember Netscape Navigator?
Here's my greatest concern for Mozilla, the foundation itself. They make the majority of their money off of contributions and deals with larger companies like Google. And, if that were to change, if they can't find a way to fund their development that's really what I think the single greatest challenge. Not that people won't use it and that there won't be that steady 10%. I love Firefox and I will continue to use it until they don't make it anymore. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And I use both. I have to use Chrome because I build websites. So I'm not an idiot. I know that Chrome is the market leader and you have to go with that. But I think there's a place for all of them. But ultimately, yeah, if they can't find a way to stand on their own 2 feet without these large deals with companies like Google, I think they could have a real problem.
Part of the problem for the indie browsers, part of the problem for we'll call them indie browsers like Firefox, as opposed to giant corporate browsers like Chrome and Edge, is Firefox doesn't have the same way that the others can market themselves. So Chrome, Gmail is incredibly popular. If you visit most Google properties and properties like Gmail, which a lot of people do, you'll have Google Chrome forced on you, like marketed at you very strongly, whatever other browser you use. And if you're on Windows and you dare to try and install a different browser, Windows will bleat at you that their browser is better, and this one is less power hungry, less memory hungry, and is more efficient and whatever. And Firefox doesn't have that position. Firefox doesn't have that dominance either just in front of people's eyeballs to be able to push themselves forward. Whereas Google have been able to do that with Chrome, arguably, morally reprehensibly, and Microsoft have done the same with Edge. And Firefox doesn't have that. It doesn't have something in front of everyone's eyeballs where they can say, hey, you should be using Firefox. So they're doing what they do best, which is focus on the privacy angle and the open source and freedom angle, which the other two just don't.
So do you guys see a day where Mozilla can't generate the money that's needed and they shut it down?
I don't think Firefox itself as a complete independent entity will ever shut down, because you have browsers such as WaterFox and the other Foxes, plus all the derivatives off of it. So I think it will always be kept going. But the main Firefox product itself, I can see dying, seriously.
No, I don't agree with that, because all those others, the WaterFox and all the others, they're basically reskins and tiny tweaks. The vast majority of the work is done by Mozilla. Mm-hmm. If Mozilla went away, if Mozilla stopped working on Firefox, those other browsers would be toast immediately, because they're not doing the core contribution to the core browser product. They're a thin veneer on top of Firefox.
Now, do you consider Pale Moon the same way?
Pale Moon is rebuild. It's right. It's like going and getting the source code for any other project and just building it and changing the icon, pretty much. Mm.
So there's one thing that I think that is a scary thought that right now we don't know what to do. Like Elizabeth Warren recently put a bill in talking about some various stuff, and there is a big push in the United States for these big tech companies to have some monopoly type stuff go against them. And that's going to change the landscape, because obviously the big Facebook scandal, and Google is technically a monopoly. So I think there is a big worry in the tech field, and we might see some interesting stuff happen because Google does not want to get broken up. They do not want to have AT&T happen to them. So, and that's just here. And then, you guys have different stuff going on over there, and I don't even know what part of the world you're going to be in a couple weeks. But there's a lot of other behind the line stuff that we don't know what's going to happen.
I think that's a good point. That one thing we often don't think about is those external factors that are beyond the control. You're a software developer, you're creating source code, you're putting it on GitHub, but something outside your sphere of influence, whether that's lawmakers in another country or someone who works for the Department of Defense leaking information that makes your project look bad, or there are a million scenarios. If you were to war game this thing, there's a million different, like, really out there, verging on conspiracy theory theories that could happen that can wreck your project. And it doesn't take much. You look at Gentoo, and them losing their wiki was a massive kick in the nuts for the Gentoo project. And who would have foreseen that? Who would have thought, well, just the wiki going offline is enough for people to upship and move to something else? There's so many of these unforeseen circumstances that can really affect your project and flush it down the toilet. And I think you're absolutely right. It could be some legislation, maybe not even in the US, could be legislation somewhere else that has a knock-on effect in the open source world that means that Mozilla has to shut down for whatever reason.
Wow.
And that's a worry.
And I think that Mozilla is vulnerable, not necessarily for that reason, but just is vulnerable because it doesn't have the financial
diversity
that it's going to need in the future, and most of its backing comes from a competitor of another browser, which is a problem for them. So I can see a world where Mozilla doesn't exist anymore, but what the open source community has been good at and is getting better at is ensuring the continuation of significant projects. So I imagine that there will be a brief period of chaos if, Mozilla collapses and Firefox is suddenly, a free-for-all among enthusiastic groups of people that want to continue that browser project. There will probably be dozens of versions of Firefox that spring up overnight, and there'll be different groups of people all trying to establish themselves as the continuation project. And then after that period of chaos, they will coalesce around one or two forks, and Firefox, via a different name, will continue to live on and be developed by a group of people that are passionate about developing that kind of software. So I don't foresee Firefox disappearing. I see maybe the name changing and the custodianship changing, but I think it will continue on.
But somebody would have to ultimately fund that, correct? For it to be as big as it is now, or to be as good as it is now? Or could it continue?
Yeah, I think it could. I mean, Mozilla do lots of different things. Firefox is just one of the many things that they do. If you have a group of passionate developers who coalesce around a GitLab repository somewhere, there's no reason why it can't continue to, evolve and develop and be maintained at a similar cadence that it is now.
Like, look at comparable projects. Look at Lineage OS. How many millions of people use Lineage OS on a wide, diverse range of devices? And I don't actually know where their funding comes from, but it's mostly a community effort, as far as I can tell. They may have some infrastructure for building stuff, but that's another example of a project which shuts down. Like Cyanogen collapsed, and when Cyanogen collapsed, the community came together, and from those ashes, Lineage was born. And it was slow. There were minimal devices being supported initially, and minimal number of builds and minimal number of versions of Android that were supported. But it got better and got better and wider, and more and more devices are supported, and there are more regular builds being done. And I think, as Martin says, if Firefox collapsed, there'd be, a phoenix that rose from the ashes and would be the new browser.
Do you remember when it used to be called Phoenix?
Yes, that's kind of why I said that.
To Martin's point, though, I will say that I think there are enough people in the world that do fear Google in its current form, let alone completely owning the internet as a whole. And if it took financial support from those people, I think there would be enough to support a project. This knee-jerk reaction when you hear people say, well, why would you even use anything besides Chrome? That type of mentality bothers me. And I think it bothers enough other people that I don't think it would die, but like we were saying, Mozilla does a lot of stuff, and maybe they do more stuff than they should do. Frankly, if they were just focused on Firefox as a browser, that would probably be a smaller challenge than trying to keep the whole foundation going.
I just feel personally that we're now getting to the stage where kind of Google's waited. Right, let's do it. Let's really put the thumb screws on everybody now. And let's be honest, it's the younger generations that are driving it, because today, for modern young generations, the desktop has been replaced with a mobile device of some description, be that a phone or a PDA or whatever. You know, the younger generations just do not want to be tied to a desktop PC anymore.
I think younger generation is a big driver, but I think people in general, like that, for a lot of people, their only computer might be their smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
And so for many of the websites that I manage, when I look at the monthly traffic logs, a huge percentage of the traffic is smartphone. I mean, much larger percentage than any desktop or laptop operating system.
And along with that, I think that the phone users are not going to, most of them are not going to install their own preferential browser.
No, they're using Safari or Chrome.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. Plus, they expect it to come free with the phone. They are not of the generations where you buy a piece of hardware and then pay extra for the operating system. The younger generations have a phone. What do you mean buy an operating system on the phone? What are you on about? So that, again, is another crazy consumer.
I don't think that's ever been a thing, has it? Nobody's ever paid for their operating system.
Really?
Only weirdos think.
Except if you're a company.
Oh, comment of the day. And you say my Windows ramp videos are bad, Rocco. Really?
Seriously, though, people buy a PC and it comes with the OS.
Yeah.
Like, normal people don't buy operating systems. Normal people buy computers and they come with operating systems.
And when that computer they buy a new one, and hey, there's an operating system there.
When it breaks, they throw it away and buy another one that comes with an operating system.
Yeah, usually that's what happens. Usually something breaks with the software and they just upgrade to a different computer.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me rephrase that. The newer, younger generations are not prepared to pay extra for an operating system on a device.
They don't even know that they're paying extra.
Yeah, they didn't even know it's a smartphone. There's no,
and even those who are buying computers, desktops, they don't know they're paying extra just for OS. They just know they buy a computer and there it is, an OS. It works. They don't know what they're paying, how much they're paying for something and stuff like that. They just know they're buying a computer that costs X amount of money, and when they plug it into the old cables in, it works. That's it. That's all they know.
Yeah,
I think people in my house, so that's why I know.
You make a good point.
You're talking about the younger generation and not knowing what an operating system is. I don't think that's true. I think they don't know how to pay for one. I think they know there's a new Windows coming out and they know exactly how to get hold of it for free, and they're not willing to buy one. And that's a different. And I think that happens more with the younger generation than it does with the older one. I remember being at school once and a child taking the mick out of me because I said I was buying a song on my phone, and they said, "What do you mean? Why are you buying it? Why aren't you just going on YouTube and ripping it onto your phone?"
Yeah, that as well.
You can find anything nowadays. So, also when you were saying about the browser thing, I wonder if you were to take if it was possible to remove the Chrome Android version of Chrome from the browser wars, from the browser percentages, what you'd be left with then, because Android devices vastly outnumber even iOS ones. And it does help that Safari on iOS is absolutely crap. So the fact that you've got a phone that's got a pretty decent browser in already, there's no phones nowadays that you can buy that come with Edge or Firefox or anything like that.
Yeah,
I wonder how much that has to do with the usage.
Quite a lot, in my opinion.
Big Pod made a good point. I mean, they get their device and it works for them. I think it'll take an event where what they're trying to do, the new big thing that's on the web, doesn't work on whatever browser is installed, in order to make a shift to a different browser. Nobody's going to go probably and install that without something not working.
Well, the idea that things are just free, there are always those people that will see, Facebook's free, right? Twitter's free. All these this is all free, right? And the reality is it's not free.
You're the product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And will there be a large percentage of people that ever make changes because of that? Probably not.
No.
But the reality is, Linux doesn't come installed on very many PCs, and here we are. I think it has a pretty strong community of people who seek it out and make it happen.
Yeah, but those who seek it out, those are more computer inclined, or they got installed by someone they know. Otherwise, you won't see people learning how to install OS just to install an alternative, because I see people bringing in USB keys of Windows and computers and asking me to install Windows on their system. Not they even can't. They made the USB drive or they got the USB drive, but they don't know or don't want to install it themselves. They would rather bring it to the shop where someone else will install it for them.
Yep.
That's the logic of normal people.
The thing is, Big, the bottom line is your ordinary, average, everyday computer user doesn't care.
Yeah.
They don't care how good Linux is or how good BSD is or Unix or anything else. They don't care.
They don't even care what they use. They just use.
They give a shiny one.
That's the hardest part in convincing people to try Linux, because you have to first convince them that they need it.
Yeah.
That they would want to try it, because what they're using presently is just working.
So what Dan was saying earlier was interesting, right? If the new big thing required that you use the Firefox browser, let's imagine for a moment a world where the only way you can play Fortnite and Apex Legends is in the Firefox browser, then every teenager in the world is suddenly a Firefox user.
Yes.
Now, the problem with this analogy, and Dan is dead right, sadly, here comes the dystopian future, is that Google have just announced effectively that, in that the new big thing will be Stadia, and you can bet your life that that's going to be first-class citizen for that is going to be Google Chrome.
It's already been announced that you will use Google Chrome to access it.
Yep. Yeah.
Now,
and we see this now, in the Google Suite products. I can have Gmail opened over here. We use the G Suite at work, so I've got Chrome installed for doing that. If I have Gmail open over here, I can copy paste with Control-C, Control-V, just like you'd expect to do. I go into Google Docs in Firefox and I do the same thing, and it intercepts every time I want to Control-C, Control-V to copy paste and says, no, if you want to do that, you have to use this key combination. It knows that I'm on Firefox and it gives me this prompt, but it knows full well what activity I'm asking it to do, and it deliberately trips me up. And I feel that that's a little bit out of the Microsoft playbook from, the 1990s, when they used to do all sorts of dodgy things to make it difficult for, other software vendors to deliver their software on DOS and Windows.
Microsoft was always that company that didn't want to do by standards.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think Google can deliver Stadia as advertised?
No.
The bandwidth requirements, I think, are going to be tough for a lot of people.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be Google is going to be problematic, but the chain between Google and the user.
I think this is a long play. In 10 years, it'll be fine, and I think it's going to be a pretty rocky decade. But this is what Google do. They have these moonshoot projects, and just through market dominance and having all of the money in the world, they're able to make these things successful. So they will definitely have a hand in improving connectivity in various parts of the world, probably all over North America, in order to facilitate this thing becoming successful.
Yeah. Also, in my opinion, the Stadia even isn't actually their final product. What they will be final at the end of the 10 year or something, that when everything gets sorted out, it won't be actually the final product. I think Stadia is more or less a research project on one of the high load usage patterns, where they will actually final product will be more for corporations and for stuff like CAD, video editing and stuff like that. And gaming is just one of the workloads that works very well, and a lot of people would use it in such a way.
Well, a lot of people would want it, but the question is it technically possible right now? Like Eric, you said about the connection. Other people tried it like on live and, failed. So
right, but they tried it in the past.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got the NVIDIA thing on the Shield, and that works fine.
The march of progress moves forward, and so you could just as easily say people in the past tried to stream 4K video, and it didn't work. It turns out connections get faster, and compression gets better.
Right.
Yeah. Problems are compression and broadband, and NVIDIA Shield is great. It works fine. It already works fine for a couple of years now. Problem is if that will work for such a big number of users, and I think if someone is at this time able to pull it off, funding and all that, it's Google, and they will bring technology forward.
I think that the NVIDIA Shield's held up. In the UK, it's not as big a problem, but there are places in Europe and stuff where the server connections aren't as good, and people have been complaining about that.
One thing will be where we will be proximately to servers. That will be a big thing. If you will be near one of their edge nodes, you will be doing you will have a great connection. If you will be somewhere in the behind the god's back, you won't be able to do anything.
I think that's definitely going to be the mass market is the tricky part, right? It's the people who don't have great connections, because the idea of streaming games with minimal latency is already I've done it. You can use Parsec. There's lots of different ways and clients to do that. It's having that good connection and building out the support for that. So if they can, to Alan's point, if they can find a way to do that now and they couldn't do that then maybe that's the way that they can move forward with it.
And you could offload some of it. I mean, Wimpy's sitting there with I don't know how many graphics cards. He could be processing. He could have his own server farm in his house for all of us.
Well, and hey, maybe this is all because Google has a warehouse full of old cryptocurrency cards just sitting around there. Well, cryptocurrency is not profitable anymore. So what can we do with all this hardware?
Or maybe they could see. Maybe every installation of Chrome puts a little CPU miner on your system, and then globally we're all processing everybody's games while we're just browsing the internet.
That's a nice card.
Eric, they know where to put those GPUs into their little computer they call AI that is overlord to all of YouTubers.
Excuse me.
Into that, it works well enough.
But I'd just like to say massive thanks to Rocco for doing this UK European version of the show. So my sincere thanks, Rocco, for all the hard work and effort you put in. A massive shout out to the chat for their support. Lovely to see everybody. I'm now off to do an Android does what Linux don't video. So I'll catch you all.
See you, BB.
Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
If you Army, I'm Microsoft fanboy.
Cheers.
So I'm big Microsoft fanboy. I can tell that.
Don't worry, when EB drops off, you'll be right next to him. There you go.
There you go. That's a nice card you showed there, Martin.
What's that?
The 1080 Ti.
This one's not good enough to make it into a system.
Not good enough?
I'll have it.
No.
Come on, dude.
I've got a 2080 Ti in this workstation.
Oh my!
Did you not see? He just picked that up from the windowsill.
Yeah, it's on the windowsill.
On the windowsill. It's that.
Some people would die for that card.
Is that on the just on the windowsill? That bottle, is that Ubuntu branded?
That's Mate.
Somebody, I forget their name, I'm terribly sorry, but at an UbuCon a couple of years ago, made me a bespoke bottle of Mate.
Nice.
It is Ubuntu Mate. And I've never drunk it, obviously, and I have this where I can see it every day.
Very nice. So, Popey, are you like telegramming Martin to send you that card or no? Because it's not in use or what?
I've got nothing to put it in. I've got,
You don't have a desktop, do you?
Laptop. Yeah, there's one over there. On the SCSI table is the Ubuntu Mate box over in the corner. But
if there was any chance of you
kidding,
getting that card, you've just burned them now.
It's actually a Windows PC over there.
Doubly burned.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so we are going to have the next little UK on, and I want to make this announcement so I can, so I don't forget. It is May 11th. That would be the second Saturday of May. So mark your calendars. Right. Okay. Now we can continue on.
Okay.
Another question I have for you guys. When I get this other computer, what should I put on it?
Solus.
Ubuntu server.
Whatever you want.
What is the computer for?
Got in it, Rocco?
It is going to be the main production machine.
So what brand of graphics card is it going to have in it?
It may or may not have a RTX 2080 in it.
Oh, good choice. So, in which case, I will, for the benefit of the audience, explain a new feature in Ubuntu 1904, which would be advantageous for this particular graphics card. So, in 1904 now, when you run through the installer, there's a tick box, and the words used to say something like install third-party codecs or something like that. And it now says install third-party hardware drivers. And if you're installing and you tick that box and you've got an NVIDIA card in your system, when your machine reboots, NVIDIA proprietary drivers are loaded and everything works fully enabled. So maybe you want to go with Ubuntu 1904.
Can I ask you if that was tested for hybrid graphics?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask if, is it better or different in the last few weeks than it has been?
So
it's not out yet.
I was
it would be a good time to report those bugs.
We were testing this just a couple of days ago. This is a hybrid graphic laptop. It's ThinkPad P1 with Quadro P2000 and Intel in it.
Okay.
Opie and I tested this stuff on Thursday. We found a couple of bugs, which meant that the install was slower than it should be, but those are being fixed. So by the time final comes out, I expect that to be fixed. But in my hybrid graphics system, it did install the NVIDIA drivers, and it defaults to the NVIDIA driver on your first boot back into the system, but then you can switch and swap around as you'd expect to.
Okay. I'm going to have to try again, because any 1904, I've tried Kubuntu, Budgie, just vanilla Ubuntu. After the install, it just comes up black screen. I can use no mode set, but even then, it's just not. There's something not working properly. I have a Dell XPS 9570.
You reach out to us and we'll get a bug filed and we'll poke the desktop team to have a look at it, because we need to nail those things before release.
All right, I'll try it after. I'll literally try it right after this and see if I can get
Yeah, I'm gonna try it on my own as well, because my system has spotty support for most distros have spotty support for my 1050 Ti mobile. Like on some it works, and some doesn't. So I got try it out.
I have a 1050 Ti as well. So should I try the beta or should I get a daily?
Get the daily.
Okay, get the daily. All right, I'll get the daily.
It doesn't matter. Try it myself.
Doesn't matter which distro.
Ubuntu Mate, you definitely should try that one.
I'm shaking my head saying no, it doesn't matter. However, I believe that Lubuntu and Kubuntu have switched over to the
Lubuntu,
yeah.
And I don't know if they're supporting this feature or not.
Okay,
so they may be. I honestly don't know, but I know that Ubuntu Mate, Budgie, Xubuntu, Ubuntu Studio will have this new capability that I've just described.
Okay, all right. I will then give that a try and let you know.
Rocco, I've got some boxed operating systems here that you might want to try.
Yes.
Okay.
Here's one boxed copy of OpenSUSE Leap. Maybe you could try that on your system. Maybe. Still in the cellophane, never been opened.
All right.
That
But if
is
that's-
very telling.
if that's-
Never been open, and probably the right state for all OpenSUSE distributions.
This box sits nicely with its bedfellow on the shelf. Windows 7.
Don't
Mhm.
use that. And I'm a Microsoft fan and telling all people,
Those are the only two
don't
boxes
install Windows 7.
I have.
Well, Martin, I asked this for a selfish reason. Is the upgrade from Ubuntu Mate 1804 to the new release when it comes out going to be painless? It is, right? Tell me it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Good.
The answer is yes. It doesn't need any further qualification.
Okay.
Frank, you've been testing it, I believe. Oh, is Frank gone? Oh no, Frank's
I'm
still
here.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, I had one bug that I found, but it's not really related to Mate. It's a painless. I've gone from 1804 to 1810 to 1904, and you're not going to have any problems.
Same here.
Will we be able to go from 1804 to 1904?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Because I do have a family computer that will be going from 1804 now to 1904. So hopefully that will be painless transition.
So Rocco, I had to run off there for a second.
Yes.
Alan reminded me of something. I've actually got another box distro here, which you could have for the right price.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Windows 3.0.
Oh,
Box
wow.
and never opened.
That is priceless, dude. I don't even know if I could afford that.
Wow, I have just seen Popey.
Sell it to some museum.
What's that?
or landfill.
I have a ThinkPad 380 XD here that would love that. Look at the thickness of that.
Wow,
It's
look at that
almost
thing.
as
Thick as it is high.
All right, so
Wow,
I need
that's
some
fantastic.
serious input here about which one which Linux distro to choose, because as I said, this is going to be the main production machine, but it's also going to be the main gaming machine.
Okay, but you want KDE Plasma, right?
Honestly, I want whatever it is to work. That's what I want.
Do you want the highest frame rate?
I will have the highest frame rate because I have NVIDIA.
Well, no. Well, you might not, depending upon which desktop.
I know.
So I would, honestly, I would choose Ubuntu Mate.
Really?
Ubuntu Mate 1904. Yes, totally.
Checks in the post.
Put
Yeah,
those
the video
video card
back,
in
didn't
with-
Also, that video clip is totally going to be over Twitter tomorrow.
Yep. I'm going to cut that part out and just post that to Twitter.
So check is in the post.
Yeah, please don't edit that together with me saying OpenSUSE and holding up
The last bit of Europe, I did a outtakes thing. I don't think I'm going to do it this time. that took like all day Sunday to do. Okay, so Ubuntu Mate is one choice. Any other choices that I have to choose from here? I mean, I'm looking at Manjaro, but Manjaro always seems to break, even though it's really good at some things. And when you look at, when I'm reading articles about gaming on Linux, and I'm looking at the ease of installing everything and things that are already pre-installed to allow you to game, and Manjaro, and I'm looking at Pop! OS as well. What do you guys think?
Manjaro, and don't be an idiot like I was and destroy it yourself. Otherwise, it's great until you destroy it yourself. That's my problem.
In Manjaro, in the past, I didn't need to do anything to destroy it. So it did it
That
itself.
was a sad existence. Well, until I started tinkering and stuff like that, it worked flawlessly. And then 2 times in the same week, it broke.
If this is a main machine,
it is,
and you want a game, what you don't want to do is have the Sony PlayStation experience of, oh look, there's an update. Oh, I now have to spend 3 hours debugging this update and fixing it and reading blog posts. You want to play games, right? And you want to know that the updates that you apply are going to apply reliably without you having to go and read some obscure web page and fettle with some GPG key somewhere and naff about with some weird packaging files. That's fine if you're into that kind of stuff. But if it's your main computer and you want it to work, then use something that's designed to just work. Ubuntu Mate.
I would say possibly Solus, because they've got the Steam integration stuff as well for gaming, and then you're not having to I know it is rolling, but I ran that for absolutely ages and it was rock solid. I just left because there was a couple of things that I wanted in another distro. But if it's just gonna be gaming and backing stuff up and then churning out videos, surely it should be all right for that, and you shouldn't have to do a full upgrade.
Solus is very nice. That's another. That would also be somewhere on my list, because if
then you are closer to your New Year's resolution, Rocco, from about 15 months ago, that you're going to stay on it.
And you know, I had a thought too. If you're going to do an Arch based, why not Salient?
Salient was another choice on the list to try.
Yeah, he's got a new release out, so
I might be persuaded if he actually came through with a Plasma Salient.
So when does this new machine arrive?
Tomorrow.
And when are you going to do the install?
No idea. Hopefully this week sometime.
Okay, so that's when we start the clock on how long you're going to last on whichever distro we tell you. And then you've got to tell us honestly when we stop the clock, because you've changed.
Oh, it won't be the same one in a month's time. It'll be something completely different.
Why? Why you got to be like that?
Hey.
What, truthful?
Yeah,
truthful. What processor will you have?
You're among friends, Rocco.
What CPU we gonna have?
I'll have to post the specs on it. I think it's going to be an Intel i9 is what it's going to be. Okay. So,
fancy.
Yeah.
You and Peter need to run some specs versus each other and see which one wins.
Yeah, I'm going to be paying for this computer for like 8 years.
Is it one of these?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
I wish I had I wish I'd invested in Bitcoin when you did mine. I really do.
Me too. I'm so angry at myself. A couple of years ago, I had that gonna buy it when it was like a couple of euros. Gonna buy it, and then at the last moment I said I'm not gonna buy it. I'm still hitting myself for that.
Frank, what were you gonna say?
No, I just think you and Peter should come up with something where you could run some maybe like the Phoronix test suite and get up some numbers, because you're going to have the latest Intel i9 and he's got the NVIDIA or the AMD. So that would be really interesting to see on two fresh systems.
I don't think we need to worry about that. I think the NVIDIA will win out regardless of the processor.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I still think that's a good idea. I still think it's a good idea for you to publish the Phoronix test suite data to the open benchmarking site, and then you can compare them side by side.
Something I've been thinking that we a group of people need to do is take Phoronix test suite, look at the sorts of things that the big YouTubers around Windows use to benchmark stuff, and we need to create a profile that broadly represents like a comparative set of benchmarks on Linux that they would use. So things like Tomb Raider and F1 2017 and superposition and all of those other things. I know we don't have all of them available, but actually create one so that those of us that are interested in this and enthusiastic about it could go to a single profile and run it and have like a good, because for all of the good work that Michael does on Phoronix, some of his benchmarks are like from the past. They're post-prehistoric. And I think we need a better representative set of like, this is what you should be looking at. You've got Deus Ex Mankind Divided, for example. There's lots of, modern titles we should be using in those sorts of benchmarks.
I definitely think it might be a good idea, maybe this month sometime, and maybe we can talk about it on the next Spittle Europe, to do the Phoronix test suite on all of our computers and see what it comes up with and post the specs to each computer.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I could do mine.
Does everyone want a crash course in how to overclock their NVIDIA GPU before we start that? Because I'm really good at that now.
I would love that once I get the new card.
200.
No, because my laptop will melt.
But I don't think it matters the specs of the computer. I think if it would just be a fun exercise to see what the Phoronix test suite came up with for each specific set of hardware.
Yeah. That will be quite a fun exercise.
Yeah.
I'm just scared it would reject me.
Peter?
I have to admit something. I think it was Frank that told me to try the Phoronix test suite while I was on Pop OS. However, I did install it, and I looked at the commands, and I got so confused of how to even use this thing. Plus, Solus was sitting there waiting to be installed. So I was like, Solus.
Once you know the command, there's basically one command you run for Phoronix Test Suite that will
I
do
did
the,
try a few guides, and
benchmark.
none of them really helped.
Yeah.
Dustin.
It's one of those things you have to know.
Hey, man.
That's
Hume,
into you.
Yeah, well, you told me to come in mobile, which I don't know how that's going to go for your quality, but hello.
What's happening? Shopping.
Yeah, I'm stuck in a sea of toys at the moment, so super fun. It's not as fun as your new rig, so.
Well, I mean, we're going to see how it works out. I'm really excited for it, but like I said, I was just reading today and yesterday, watching videos on the difference between NVMe and M.2 hard drives. I didn't realize that there was an actual difference between M.2 and NVMe, where there's a huge speed difference between the two. Because they look alike, they're advertised alike, you know what I mean? Like, that's the new hotness, is the M.2 hard drives, but it doesn't mean if you buy an M.2 hard drive that you're going to get that speed.
M.2 is a plug, NVMe is a standard.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you can get NVMe with SATA or...
What was that?
That was a cattail?
Or with NVMe. You have to watch for that. Yeah, I almost made that mistake on a system I was building for a friend.
Well, see, I'm torn because I have an NVMe in this computer, but that's also going to be a gaming computer where I'm sorry, but I will be dual booting that with Windows, and I always dual boot on a different hard drive. So I'm going to need a second drive in that computer, but do I take the NVMe out of here and put it in there, and then just leave a regular SSD in the distro hopping machine?
I've got options for you here.
Give me options. Give me options.
First of all, here's a couple of NVMe drives that didn't make the cut. That's a 2 terabyte Evo 970 and a 512 Evo 970.
It didn't meet the cut?
No, they got bumped. They got bumped from the system. So
what did get in the system?
Hey, Martin, can I just buy all your used stuff when you come to Washington?
Right?
Yeah, sure. I'll bring it with me. But this is what you could use to provide some extra disks for your dual booting, right? So this, I spoke about this on the latest Ubuntu podcast. It's a single lane PCI Express card, and you'll see there in the middle there's the two adapters. These are regular SATA SSDs. These two are 240 gig, so they're individually addressable, but you put this in your system and you can boot off them just like regular disks. So if you want to add extra drives that, you know, this one's Windows, this one's Linux, and boot off them, then you can do that. And then what you want to do is you want to get some of these, which are gigabyte SSDs, which have got excellent write endurance. They're right up there with what Samsung are producing, but they're a fraction of the cost. So you want to get 2 of those to stick on one of these, and you get a terabyte of storage.
How much is the adapter?
This was 30 quid. So what's that at the moment in dollars? That's probably, 3p or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not that much.
Yeah. And the discs are 40 quid at the moment. So, they're relatively inexpensive.
Well, I got decisions to make, so I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Has that cleared everything up for you?
Yeah, no, it's totally not cleared everything up, but time is running out for the Europe edition. Dustin, you made it just in time for us to say goodbye.
Just in time to ruin your audio quality.
It's all good, brother. All right, I appreciate everybody being here. Everybody gets a last word. Army?
Not much really. I'm disappointed Bob couldn't stay for longer so that we could all give him a tongue lashing. But thank you for hosting this again, and hopefully be back in a month.
Nice. Like I said, mark your calendars. What is it? May 11th for the next. Big Pod, last word.
Thank you for having this Europe edition, and well, we'll see you a couple of hours.
Yep, pretty much. Eric, last word.
Thanks as always for putting this on. Good to see everybody show up today. Love getting a chance to chat with everybody, hear your ideas, and best part of my week. What can I say?
Hey.
Nice. Frank, last word.
Thanks, Rocco. Thank you for doing this, and it's good to see everybody. And since I went out to the pub last night, I have to spend time with the family, so I don't know if I'll see the next one.
All right. All good, man. It's real life.
Yeah, it was the pub. It was real life.
Peter, last word.
Loving Team Red. About to go have a nap, and I'll see you all tonight.
I'm sorry about Team Red. Dan, last word.
Thanks, Rocco. It's always fun to interact with some other folks, and look forward to tonight's biddle.
Popey, last word.
Hello. Thank you for having us. Thank you for doing this at a sane time for us UK citizens. You'll find me on ubuntupodcast.org. We've just started a new season. And you may also find me in a not safe for work mode on User Error, which is error.show. But listen on headphones. So it gets
Love it. Love it. One of my favorites.
All right. Robin, you got audio? All right. Martin, last word, brother.
Thanks very much for doing this again. Great to be able to do this at a sensible time, because that's the only time I will do it. And also, what a happy coincidence that I got to meet Frank, or speak to Frank, who's the newest member of the Ubuntu Mate team. So that's just been delightful, and I look forward to the next one.
Very nice. Dustin, last word, brother.
Hey man, thanks for having me on at the with the super odd situation. And thanks for continuing to invite me, even though I always seem to never be able to make it. So thanks for doing what you do.
All good. Pizza, you made it for the end.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is my first word and my last word. So
yes.
It's kind of awkward. I don't really know what to say. Not going to lie.
It's all good. It's all good. What do you got? Anything?
I guess I'll see some people at Linux Fest Northwest.
Are you going?
Yeah, I'm going in 2 weeks on the 27th.
Cool.
Nice. Very nice.
Come by the Ubuntu booth.
Yeah, I am. I actually have it planned, and I have a simple note with all of the booths I'm going to go to. So,
well, that's one that's too far away for me to make. I don't even know if I can make it to Self yet. So
wait a minute. Too far away from you.
Yes,
but we're flying from the UK.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
We're flying for 11 hours to go to this.
I'm going to sit next to him for 11 hours.
What Alan's saying, Rocco, is you
I'm in Seattle, so I'm not that far away. It's only like a
30-minute
drive.
What did you say,
Well, we
Martin?
look forward to seeing you.
All right.
What?
I appreciate everybody being here. It's been a great time, a great discussion about file managers, web browsers, and everything else under the sun, and awesome hardware as well. So there you go. Join us in the Telegram group at bigdaddylinks.com/Telegram. And we will see you in a couple hours for the regular scheduled biddle.
Oh, there's a second one? Cool, I won't miss that.
All right. Everybody have a great night. Long live Linux.